Old Town Marblehead is filled with history. Brick streets, salt air, creativity everywhere you look. And at its center is Arnould Gallery, a place that's been showcasing local artists for decades, and a place that gave birth to one of the town's most iconic symbols, the golden cod. Today, we're meeting with owner Gene Arnould to share the story of the cod, what it represents, and how art continues to shape this community. Gene, thank you for being with us. We're here in your shop, Arnould Gallery. It's as authentic as it gets here in Marblehead. Exudes charm, one of, if not the most iconic shop in Old Town. So how did it all begin?
Well, we started in 1978. I was sort of rolling around trying to figure out what I was going to do after having done some graduate work here in Cambridge, a little bit more in Indiana, and deciding I really wanted to be back in Marblehead. So we came back, and a couple years later decided not to wait till retirement, but to go ahead and open the gallery that we thought we might do sometime, and been doing it ever since.
You've seen generations of local artists, visitors, locals come through these doors. What keeps people coming back?
Well, I think, first of all, the quality of the art that we have is really fine. It's really wonderful artists from across New England. We've come to a point where we have a number of artists who come here every year to paint Marblehead. They come here from Connecticut, from New Hampshire, Maine. One comes up from New Jersey, and then a handful of people from the local area, from Marblehead, Salem, Swampscott, Nahant, and some from northern Massachusetts, meaning Rockport, Gloucester, southern Massachusetts, south of Boston, west out near Worcester. And they just love to come to Marblehead and paint. It's a beautiful place to not only work, but to spend a few days out in the open painting the beautiful scenes that you see around Marblehead.
No doubt, no doubt. And to that point, Marblehead has this incredible lifestyle, coastal, historic, creative. How do you see that in the works that, reflected in the works that you showcase here?
Well, the artists who come here to paint discover those places that become special to Marblehead people, Marblehead residents. And in some cases, I send the artist, try painting there today. Why don't you try painting over here today? Once they discover it, they go back again and again and again. There's one area out as you head toward Grace Oliver's Beach here in Marblehead, which we call Yves' Studio, because that's where Yves Parent, a French artist who came to Marblehead in 1984 for the first time, loved to paint, and he would set up his easel there and paint on that location. And some of his friends who are members of the art community who come up every year to paint would join him there. He unfortunately is no longer with us, but the legacy lives on. And there are just so many wonderful spots. I say that Marblehead is the kind of place where you love it so much that if you live in Marblehead, you want to look at it as much when you're inside your home as when you're outside.
Let's go back even further for a moment. How did you come to discover Marblehead, being a Midwest guy?
I was a student in Cambridge and doing some graduate work there. And on Sunday afternoon, sometimes some of my classmates would hop in my MG. We could get 4 people in my MG, sometimes 5 if they scrunched in. And we would go someplace like Marblehead. And a buddy of mine, Rick Gilkey, was pushing to go to Marblehead. We should go to Marblehead, go to Marblehead. So one Sunday afternoon, we drove to Marblehead. To this day, I don't know exactly where we were. I was not impressed.
Whoa.
I know, don't tell anybody that. I think we must have parked somewhere down near the harbor after working our way through traffic to get to Marblehead. And I looked out at this lake out there, and I don't think we ever saw the ocean. And I thought, well, we have bigger lakes than that in the Midwest. I don't know what the big deal was. So that was my introduction to Marblehead. Fast forward a couple of years, I'm getting married and looking for an apartment. I put notices up on the common room of the grad school. Someone else had seen my note, and he said, Gene, I saw your card. You're looking for a place. Would you ever be interested in living in Marblehead? It was a blizzardy day. He said, I'll call the landlord. You can drive out and see him. So I drove out up on the second floor. There was a crack in the front door. I thought that was pretty cool. Buried in the backyard up to the water line was one of the old ferries that went back and forth across the harbor. I think this was the blonde. The woman who owned a property down there called the Pony Barn had bought the ferry boat to use. She was a harpist with the Dallas Symphony, and she used the boat as a little tea room for her guests. Wow. So it was buried up to the water line, and there it was. And that was enough to decide for me.
Wow. And as they say,
Marblehead was for me.
The rest is history. It's a very serendipitous story.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
We have to talk about the famous gold cod. It's been synonymous with this store. For those who don't know Marblehead, maybe they've driven through and seen the cod gleaming on numerous homes all over town. But they probably don't know the story behind it. Could you share a little bit about the backstory of the golden cod and how it came to be?
Sure. The codfish was the commodity on which the wealth of New England, Massachusetts, and particularly Marblehead was built. It had the property that it could be. It was, first of all, it was so plentiful. Bradford, in his history of the Cape Cod, said you could just shovel them out of the water into the boat, so they were easy to catch. They could be salted and preserved, and at that point they could be shipped all over the colonies here. They could be shipped down to the Caribbean, over to Europe, and they had the property that when you were ready to eat the fish, you would soak it in water for 24 to 48 hours to get the salt out of it, and the flesh of the fish returned to almost fresh fish. And so that's where the wealth of this town came from. And sometime probably in the 40s or 50s, a fellow named Ray Abbott started carving them. And he had retired from the steel industry. He came to me. He was working down the street at another little shop part-time. And he said, I think you could sell some of these codfish here. And I said, Ray, we don't really sell codfish here in the gallery. We're more art and paintings and that sort of thing. And I said, well, thinking in my head, I'll try them for a month, Ray, and then you can come and get them out of here because no one's ever going to buy them. But oh my God, as you say, they're iconic, Marblehead. We've shipped them all over this country, places where you would never have heard of a codfish. We've shipped them to Kansas, to Wisconsin, to Georgia, California, Illinois, you name a state where they are not located, and there's probably one there somewhere hiding. We shipped them to Paris. They've gone with a lot of travelers to Japan as a host gift, and it just became an iconic symbol of Marblehead.
Yes, exactly. A symbol of the lifestyle and the culture of this town.
Exactly, yeah. Yep.
I have a gold cod here. I mean, they're beautiful. This is a 15-inch. You sell them in multiple sizes.
Yeah, this one is made by Greg Pierce, who was a retired merchant marine who lives here in Marblehead. And this is his creation based on one that his father did probably 50 years ago. This is
what they look like prior to the finish. So what is the process here? Tell me how you get from here to here.
Okay, well, this is one of Paul Beauregard's codfish. Paul was a carver who did shorebirds and swans and egrets and all sorts of things that were shown in the gallery. And he also supplies a gallery in Newburyport and one in Guncoat, Maine. And when Ray had retired, and we were in between people to carve. And we finally implored Paul Beauregard to do a 17-inch for us. And he said, okay, I'll do a 17. He based it on a weather vane that he found online. But he said, I'm not going to finish them. You take care of that. So he brings us in what I call raw fish. It's just the wooden fish. We put a couple of coats of sealer on it, 2 coats of primer on it. Then we turn it over to the gold leafer, who uses 23-karat gold leaf to create the final fish that you see there. And so that's how they come to be.
That's beautiful. Marblehead's known for its strong sense of community. How does Arnould Gallery sort of contribute to the community beyond just selling art? What does it mean as part of the sort of the fabric of the lifestyle, sort of being entrenched in this community?
Well, I think Marblehead's a terrible place to live if you don't want to be involved in the community. Gotcha. Because we're a peninsula. You don't come here by mistake. You come here because you want to come here. There are roads leading into it, roads leading out of it, but really not many roads leading through it, as 1A leads through Salem or 114 leads through Salem.
Unless you have a boat.
Unless you have a boat, exactly. And so I think community is very, very important here, and always has been since the early days in the 1600s, when this was a community formed by people who were told to get out of Salem because they weren't religious enough or they weren't righteous enough. And it's always had this sense of being out here on the peninsula. And I think in many ways it still does.
So I'd love to ask, what do you hope visitors feel when they come walk through your shop and they see what you have here, they see this representation of town?
Well, I hope they're first struck by the wonder of human beings creating this kind of beauty, looking at something and creating it on canvas or on a piece of paper. I can't do that. Stick figures are a challenge for me. And as I've said to people, they say, are you an artist? And I indicate I've painted the ceiling 35 years ago, and that's about as far as my artistic talent goes. But I hope they see that, and then I hope that through the beauty of the intrigue of the images that they see on the wall, that it ignites within them, in their home, the wonder of being in a place that's special. As I said, a lot of this stuff stays in Marblehead, but a lot of it goes to other places around the country and reminds people, wherever they happen to put their roots down, that there's this place waiting for them if they want to come back.
The Golden Cod is more than a piece of decor. It's a statement of pride, belonging, and love for this seaside town. A huge thank you to Gene Arnould and the Arnould Gallery team for sharing their story. And if you like local stories, local art, hit subscribe and explore more of the North Shore in the next episode.